Every sustainability framework the movement has produced rests on a foundation of beliefs. Beliefs about growth, about nature, about what a business is actually for. Those beliefs are never examined. I'm Ken Alston, 40 years in sustainability. This channel examines the beliefs the frameworks are built on. Let's get into it. You've started the transformation. The strategy was written, the framework was chosen, the team was capable, the commitment was genuine. And yet, somewhere in the process, something redirected it. Not the team, not the strategy, not the framework. Something upstream of all of those. Most organizations never find language for what that thing is. Today, I'm going to give you the language and a name for the step that would have reached it. Every sustainability transformation I have ever been part of begins at step one. Step one is usually something like assess where we are, or identify our material issues, or establish our baseline. These are legitimate first steps. They're not wrong. But they're not the first step. There is a step before step one. And in 40 years of practice, I've never seen a framework that includes it. Not the triple bottom line, not cradle to cradle, not ESG, not the circular economy. Every one of those frameworks assumes that the organization is ready to begin, that the foundation is already in place, that the beliefs governing the process are already aligned with what the process requires. That assumption is almost never true. And it's the reason the transformation hit its ceiling at the point you couldn't explain. You see, stage zero is not a step in the process. That is the first thing to understand. If you put stage zero inside the framework, a step 0.5, or as a pre-assessment or a readiness checklist, you've missed it. Stage zero is the examination that determines what the process can reach. It happens before the framework. It governs what the framework is capable of producing. Let me make that more concrete. Imagine two organizations. Both adopt the same framework, use the same consultants, the same methodology, and the same starting point. 3 years later, one has produced genuine transformation. The other has produced a very good report. The framework did not determine that outcome. The belief architecture did. The operative beliefs that each organization brought to the process about what growth means, about what nature is, about whose future counts, and on what time horizon, well, those beliefs governed what the framework could reach before the framework was even opened. Step zero is the examination of those beliefs. Now, it's not what the organization says it believes, but what its decisions reveal that it actually believes. That distinction is the entire foundation of this work. And here's why stage zero is almost always skipped. It's not negligence, it's not laziness. It's architecture or structure. No current sustainability framework includes an examination of the operative beliefs governing the organization. Not one. The frameworks assume the beliefs are already aligned. They begin at strategy. They begin at measurement. They begin at setting targets. All those things are downstream of belief. And there's a second reason. Stage zero requires a different kind of question. Most organizations are structured to ask, what should we do? Stage zero asks, what do we actually believe about what we should do? And is that belief governing our decisions? These are not the same question. And the second one is genuinely uncomfortable to ask in an organization because it makes the gap visible between what the organization says it values and what its decisions reveal it actually values. Most organizations would rather not see that gap, which is precisely why the ceiling stays where it is. So what does stage 0 actually examine? The belief architecture. It's a term I want to define here precisely because it is the central concept of everything on this channel. The belief architecture is the set of operative beliefs that actually govern an organization's decisions, as distinct from the beliefs that the organization says it holds. A psychologist named Chris Augeris spent his career studying this gap. He called it the difference between spouse theory and theory in use. Spouse theory is what we say we believe. Theory in use is what our decisions reveal that we actually believe. Now, every organization has both. The sustainability movement has spent 40 years working with the espoused theory. The theory in use has been governing the ceiling that can be reached. Step 0 examines 12 dimensions of the belief architecture, 12 areas where the gap between the espoused theory and the theory in use tends to live. Beliefs about growth, about efficiency, about what nature is and what circularity and sustainability requires, and about what a business is ultimately for. Each of those dimensions has a from and a to. The from is the belief that has been setting the ceiling. The to is the belief that transformation requires. Stage 0 services where the organization actually is in each of those dimensions, not where it says it is. Let me tell you what changes when an organization begins at stage 0. I recently recorded a podcast conversation with a colleague of 25 years, a senior executive in one of the world's most recognized cradle-to-cradle certified companies, someone who's been doing the work from the inside since the earliest days of C2C, a person of genuine commitment and real expertise, someone I truly admire for their dedicated work. He described the chemistry work, the deep material health analysis that once defined the framework, and now being, in his words, the table stakes. Expected, absorbed, baseline, no longer the leading edge. And then I asked about end of use. What happens to the product when the customer is done with it? He said, quote, "It was still the toughest area to capture, to connect, to work on, because there's an economic element to that," end quote. 25 years of genuine C2C work. The loop is still not closed. Now, I want to be really precise about what that shows. It does not show failure. It does not show lack of commitment. It shows the ceiling. The espoused theory said circular by design, materials as nutrients, closed loop. The theory in use said our responsibility ends at the point of sale. And here is the critical thing. That operative belief was not presenting as a belief. It was presenting as economics, as a market condition, as just being the way things are, which is precisely how the belief architecture works. It doesn't announce itself, it governs invisibly, as if it was simply the structure of reality. That is what stage 0 surfaces, not the economics, the belief that is presenting as economic. When that becomes visible, when the gap can be seen rather than felt without naming it, then the conversation changes. Not because the framework changed, but because the foundation did. The conditions in which a real strategy becomes possible. Next week, I'm going to go deeper into the belief architecture itself, what it is, how it operates, and what Argyris's work reveals about why organizations are so resistant to examining it. If any of this is landing with you, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're sitting with a transformation that has hit a ceiling you can't yet name, that is precisely what this channel is for. That's where I'll leave it this week. If the belief architecture argument is landing for you, please subscribe. Every week, we go one layer deeper. I've spent 40 years inside this problem. I have a lot left to say. I'm Ken Alston. This is the work.